And there are a lot of unsolved problems in Web3. The dev tools suck. 2 weeks into it, we were not confident in the product, but we started talking about it. We were selling it. Everyone has feature requests, and we know what we had to do. We had to solve them and deliver them. Like, hey, I want to do NFT drop. We would say, it's actually 2 weeks away. But in fact, we had nothing. We then, after the call, we just started scrambling, like, hey, how can we make this happen? We have so far onboarded 50,000 developers. Hey everyone, I'm Jake. Nice to see you all. And today I'm here to talk about, how we help 50,000 developers build on Web3 yet. A little bit background on myself. I'm a person that always obsessed with new challenges. I love challenges, and that's kind of what led up to where I am today. At the age of 12, I was ambitious, trying to build a video game, but I didn't know how to program. I didn't know how to code. And so I started out just like, okay, at the end of this, I want to build a video game, but 1 week into it, quickly turned around and said, nope, because video game, little did I know, involve a lot of physics, math, graphics, animations, all of that. So turned my head around and built a calculator app instead. It was great. And I didn't stop there. I kept building things for myself, just building different apps to solve my day-to-day problems, building for my friends at school, and just kept building. By the age of 19, I joined a company called Bebo, a startup that founded by Sean Puri and also Furkan, who is now the co-founder of Thirdweb. When I first joined, I was an Android engineer, and 1 week into it, I became a web front-end engineer without knowing how to write a CSS, JavaScript, but I learned, I picked it up, and powered through it. And then 2 months into it, I was told that I need to fill in the back-end role, and I now suddenly become a back-end engineer. And in 4 years at Bebo, I've done Android engineering, just Android apps, web front ends, back end, infrastructure, live audio video pipeline, and just optimization for GPU and everything that is technical and it's a hard problem, and that's my problem. Back in 2019, our company Bebo got acquired by Amazon. That's where our team went to work at Twitch, where it really gave me a sense of what it is. What's the difference between a startup and a big company? At startup, at Bebo at least, we used to ship every day or two. We focus on delivering value to the customer. Well, in a fast way, in a quick way. So we ship every 2 days, every day. But at Amazon, it was different. We have to write document. And I didn't know how to write spec before. I had to learn it there. I had to learn the culture of reading docs at the beginning of the call. It was great, but it was very different. And quickly, I grew kind of bored of it. It's not something I wanted to pursue further. And so that's kind of when I decided to leave Amazon and pursue Web3 full-time. I fell in love with Web3. I believe many of us here, share the same sentiment. And I got into it because I was continuously just finding new challenges for myself, and Web3 just kind of opened it up for me. When I got into Web3, I learned about DeFi, learned about NFT, DAOs. I still remember I spent $200. So the first thing I did was I deposited $200 into my Ethereum wallet, and I started interacting with DeFi protocol. Guess what happened? 80% of them went to gas fee. I didn't even realize at that time. So I thought I was yield farming, but in the end, I just spent all of them on gas. And I spent some money on NFTs. Obviously, y'all know how NFTs goes. But and then DAO, it was a great one. Everyone talked about self-governing ecosystem. DAO was great, and I really believe in it. And I tried to build DAO, and that's kind of how we initially kind of came together and build stuff. But quickly realized that the tooling sucks, and to build those toolings is also difficult. And there are a lot of unsolved problems in Web3, and I'm here for it, and that's kind of what kept me up and continually pushing for it. At the end of the day, I like the tech, I believe in the tech, on decentralization, trustless, permissionless, and all of that. But I also recognize that there's just a lot of unsolved challenges, right? Scaling solutions exist for a reason. developer tooling that makes it easier exists for a reason. And those are the things that kind of kept me going and made me actually decided of, hey, every day I spend at Amazon, it's just like, I would just wait for the hours of me getting off work because I wanted to do more stuff in Web3. And at one point, I just like, what am I even doing at Amazon? Like, I'm comfortable, but I'm not having fun. I'm not excited about the day-to-day. And every day I wake up just being dreadful. I'm like, do I have to do it again? Do I have to go to this meeting? And ultimately, just make the push of, hey, let's pursue this full-time. Let's do it. Web3 is exciting, a lot to learn, a lot of challenges for me to solve. And I cannot miss out on this. I need to just jump right into it. And that's why I decided to quit Twitch and just pursue Web3 full-time. The first thing I did, at least, after I left my full-time job, I called up Furkan. So Furkan and I, we worked together for such a long time. I always knew that he's in the space. And so we just started talking and chatting and brainstorming. We talk about just different crazy ideas from, just anything at all. Just go from creator economy protocols to live streaming video protocols to developer tool, everything. At the end of the day, we spent one day on it. At the end of that, we basically decided, hey, let's pick one thing and let's go for it. And we picked something that we know the best, developer tools, because coming from my background, just playing with Web3 on the side, I recognize that the dev tool sucks. And if it's bad, how can we onboard the next 1,000 developers to build stuff? And so we quickly spent 2 weeks and prototype and put together what we had to become kind of what the inception of Thirdweb. We packaged up everything that we had into something that is easy to use. We spent 2 weeks on just building an SDK, writing documentations, building out a dashboard for people to manage and deploy smart contracts, and also just kind of pulling contract from all the places that we can find. And so after we figured out what we wanted to build, cool, what's next? We started writing release note of what this product is, what it could be, and I started sharing out to people. So even though 2 weeks into it, we were not confident in the product, but we started talking about it. We were selling it. Every day we would schedule calls with customers and talk about what Thirdweb is, and that's kind of what we call like hand-to-hand combat. And it's really about us presenting our product in the hand of the customer and also working with them, right? It's like customers are going to come in, they have issues, we work with them. We created a Discord server in the beginning, and everyone that came in that wanted to build something with our tool, we would create a private channel for them. Why? Because we want to make sure they feel heard. And that's something that we still do today, and that's kind of the hand-to-hand combat. And there's one thing that we always run into, because we get on customer calls, I believe in the first 3 months of just the inception of Thirdweb, we have talked to 200 to 300 customers, because Furkan and I would just go from day to night, no matter which time zone they're in. We would stay up to 2 a.m. just to talk to customer. And one thing that we realized was, hey, everyone has feature requests. And we know what we had to do. We had to solve them and deliver them. And so every time when we got on a call, when someone asked for something, like, hey, I want to do NFT drop, we would say, it's actually 2 weeks away. But in fact, we had nothing. We then, after the call, we just started scrambling, like, hey, how can we make this happen? And that's kind of like another framework that we use at Thirdweb was every problem, there's a 1-hour solution, 1-day solution, and 1-week solution. So when someone wanted to do NFT drop, we immediately go for the 1-week solution of, all right, this is the experience, this is what we're gonna do, and this is the perfect case. And then we're like, okay, what's the 1-hour solution that solved that problem? We started looking for, open source projects, started looking for codes around, started reuse whatever we can. So start put things together. And ultimately, when we think about the solution, it should solve customer problem and optimizing for the 1-hour solutions, 1-day solutions, and not a 1-week solution. We're not aiming for perfection here. We're here to solve customer problem. And that's kind of how initially the first 3 months of how we started. We had a lot of success. It's in December, at the end of the third month, we did a launch. We were at the point where people would come in and we felt like they didn't get enough help. And that's kind of when we realized, wait a second, this is working. A lot of people want what we're building. A lot of people want developer tools to make their life easy, to enable them to build Web3 apps. And we recognize that it's working because every day we still have calls after calls after calls. We're just like, dude, I can't just keep doing this. We need to scale this operation. We need to make sure we have the right people in the team to help this out, to scale this operation up. After we recognize them, and the scale catching up, and then it's a defining moment for us as a company and as a team. We recognize that and also kick it into a different gear. Well, that's running into a problem. Great, we built product, we scaled the product. People want what we built, but how do I build a company? I was an IC, individual contributor, for the longest time in my life. For 8 years, I just been programming in the corner, shipping code, without talking to anyone. But now, when we talk about scaling a company, it requires different skill sets, different challenges. And I had to become a CTO, and sorry. I had to become a CTO. I had to take off my IC hat of writing code and actually leading a team and figuring out what that meant. And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned becoming a CTO was defining responsibilities. At the beginning, it was just Furkan and me and a few other people. We were doing everything. But as we are scaling the operation, as we are hiring people into the role, we actually have to be explicit and clear about the responsibility of each individual. We learned about, at least I learned about, being transparent and being clear to each individual in the team and engage with them and making sure that they are clear on their responsibilities so that, when problems arise or when things happen, everyone's clear what to do. And it creates an effective team to just operate and run on their own. And another challenge that I ran into just after scaling the organization was looking into the future. The first initial 3 months of, hey, we need to build something. We need to find if this is something that people want. But quickly after that, it's more about how can we make sure everyone in the team actually know about where we're going. And that's something that I learned the hard way of okay, we actually need to think further ahead. This is no longer just sprinting. Because the first 3 months was finding customer was all about sprinting forward. You go wherever the customer are. But now we are at the point where it works. It's about making sure that everyone is effectively going to the right direction and going to the direction that we wanted to go. And so I learned a lot about just making sure that the teams align on where we're going, and also myself get more clarity on where we're going, and making sure that it's being put up front so that everyone has the same expectation. And another thing that I learned, going from IC to a leader on the team, playing to people's strengths is really powerful. It is something that I think what I also I learned a little bit at Bebo. There is this phrasing of everyone has a superpower, everyone's unique in their own way, and we should play to that. And that's kind of what we do at Thirdweb, making sure that everyone in the team, consistently feel challenged and also excited about what we're building, and play to people's strength on making sure that they can deliver the impact and bring it to the team. So where are we now? Today, Thirdweb is a development tool that supports 6 different blockchains. We support different languages from TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Python, to Go and Unity. And I think it's been working out pretty well, but we're still early. We have so far onboarded 50,000 developers, enabled them to build Web3 apps. And we yesterday just announced that we raised $24 million Series A. And we have created a team of 25. And it all went from 5 people, me, Furkan, and a few others at the beginning, to 25 now. And so there was just a lot of challenges along the way. But one thing we know for sure is be iterative. We iterate a lot on just internal process and organization setup and structure, and also products. We're not afraid of throwing products away just because we spend time on it. But we throw away because user doesn't want it, doesn't need it, or it doesn't fit our product vision. We're iterative, and everything we do, we want to make sure that we keep that. And with that, I think we have a pretty good, chance to solve the next set of challenges ahead of us. And I think that's all I have. We can go into questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for Jake?
Hi, my name is Eloka, coming from London, and love the presentation. Thanks so much. Slightly tangential question, but love just to know how you developed your relationship with Stephen Bartlett. Stephen is one of the most up-and-coming entrepreneurs in the UK, really, really talented guy. And how do you manage sort of that global team based in sort of SF, London, and that relationship there? Thanks.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I started my, when I was 19, I joined a company, startup called Bebo. That's where I met Furkan. So Steve was also actually there. So Steve actually worked with Furkan briefly on a product together, and I joined slightly after. And so we were all connected through Furkan. So Thirdweb started during the pandemic, COVID lockdown, and so we are global first. And so we have, virtual remote office set up, and all of our calls online, and every documentation is published on, in Notion somewhere. And the company is basically set up as, just a global company. And so we never really have any challenges on just working around, working globally. In fact, today we have people based out of Australia, people based out in Philippines, London, obviously, New York, and, West Coast. And some people in Europe as well. And I think we also made it work because we just organize ourselves around just documentation and just communication, and just organize it in a way that is publicly accessible. So we just shared information asynchronously.
As a developer myself, I've come across Thirdweb, and I'd like to know what's your biggest source of these developers. What funnel do you think is the most effective?
The funnel I would think is most effective. I think Thirdweb today, I would say there are kind of two groups of customers. One is just long-tail developers who want to build Web3 apps. And for that, we think developer-to-developer strategy works the best. What that means is, hey, let's sponsor a hackathon. Let's make sure that we get in front of every developers and help them build. And so with that, we work with great DevRel. We have a great DevRel team and work with DevRel in the space to make sure that we teach other people and developers about Web3. And so we also partner with BuildSpace so that when you learn, hey, how do I build Web3 app, you would basically use Thirdweb because Thirdweb is there to begin with. And that's kind of the strategy we use there. And on the other side, we have more VIP, and those we basically we do workshop for them, and the VIP are companies and brands, basically. And we will do workshop for them, we would do, schedule a call, go through, and help them think about solutions and integration, and provide them code snippets. We have a collection of templates that any developer can just access and just learn how to build stuff from there. And we have a great developer portal and documentation website as well.
Hey, Jake. Kind of related, I guess, to the prior question. I guess, I can't even remember how I discovered Thirdweb some point last year. So and I know you guys have this information because I know during the onboarding you're always asking, how did you guys find us? So you kind of touched a bit upon it, but I'm curious, what is the largest source of traffic for new signups overall? Is it the SEO from all the tutorials that you're hosting on the Thirdweb website?
Most of SEO do have some traffic, but not the majority. A lot of them come from, just, I would say developer content. So BuildSpace content, BuildSpace courses, or just YouTube partners with creators on how do you build OpenSea? How do you build X, Y, and Z? So we've seen a lot of great success there. And so content is something that we're focusing a lot on and continually pushing that forward. And ultimately, we really think about how do we educate other developers to build something cool. And underneath is going to be using Thirdweb, but we care about just kind of user-facing, what do they get out of it.
Anyone else?
Some examples of some projects that people use for Thirdweb that became popular?
Yeah, some projects that use Thirdweb. So Coinbase NFT Marketplace, they would do a drop every Friday. That's powered by Thirdweb. We have Fnatic in collaboration with Paper. That NFT is powered by Thirdweb. And we also have creators, just individuals, just like people, artists that want to create cool arts. There are a lot of those that also use Thirdweb. Today, Thirdweb has an easy-to-use dashboard for people to quickly create contracts and manage smart contracts. But on top of that, that allows you to get very far. But on top of that, the SDK is kind of where the magic happens. People can then build on top of it. And so a lot of people, they start with just beating out NFTs drops, but they already have something planned in mind to use our SDK to build more stuff beyond that.
Hi, you talked about iterating processes. So I'm curious to know, how has processes evolved as the team scaled?
That's an interesting one because I think Freecon hates the word process, and I never at least get the experience of like, what does the process mean? Never really learn about that. But I think in terms of process, the way I think about it is it takes away some annoying problem you have to deal with. For example, when a developer at a company builds something, it's a problem when the other side of the company doesn't know about, hey, what's being built, right? And the way that we solve that is by having something structured that allow the communication to be more streamlined. So we have a release manager that every day will post about, hey, this is all the Git commits, and this is organized in a nice way, so you know what to tell the world about or how to do whatever you want to do with it. So like posting to Discord for release note, or telling Twitter about the social for just like, hey, what we launch. And so the process to me, I think, is adaptive almost. I think over time we have just learned what worked and what didn't. And for the thing that works, is stay on because everyone just kind of feel natural with it. But it's not something that we force on people. And so even like every tools that we introduce to help with process, is something that each of us feel like is necessary and it actually help us and not detrimental.